Welcome back to the channel, guys. Today we're going to discuss what strength is, what exactly the strength spectrum is, and what are strength qualities. And once you understand what these things are, you'll be able to implement this into your own programs as well to the programs of your own clients. So let's get started. So what is the strength spectrum? Well, the only way I can answer that question is by addressing what is or what are strength qualities. So strength qualities, let's ignore the power side for a second. So strength qualities are absolute strength, hypertrophy, and strength endurance. And these are gonna fall under a spectrum, right? So the further you are, so let's do a line here. The further we are to the left of the spectrum, you're going more towards absolute strength and just building overall physical strength in terms of a 1 RM, or in terms of what your maximal lift is for that particular movement. And the further we move to the right of the strength spectrum, we're not focusing so much on becoming physically stronger, but we're building more strength endurance or muscular endurance. Power is its own unique beast. It falls to the left of absolute strength, and the reason for that is because with power, you are lifting at a very high percentage of your 1 RM. There is a component that is very important to power, and that's speed. So you're expressing a high level of strength, overall strength output, but there is an extra variable involved, and that's speed. But it is important to understand where that falls within the strength spectrum. So now that you have a general understanding of what the strength spectrum is and what strength qualities are, let's get into the fine details of each type of strength quality. Okay, so let's start over here with absolute strength. Let's ignore power for now. I'll explain that at the end. Absolute strength, in terms of 1 RM, we're using 80 to 90% of your 1 rep maximum. This means we're just trying to get as physically strong as humanly possible. In terms of your rep ranges, we're doing 1 to 5 reps, somewhere around there. I mean, it is a spectrum, right? So you could go as far as 6 reps, maybe even 7 reps. But generally speaking, when we're training absolute strength, we're doing 1 to 5 reps. Think of power lifters and how it is that they train. They're usually targeting this rep range, okay? Your rest, what does your rest look like? So you want to rest in between your sets. And the reason for that is because you need to recover so you could perform your next set as optimally as possible, okay? So we're looking at between 3 to 5 minutes between sets. And the reason for that is if you are truly lifting within this rep range, within this percentage of your one rep maximum, you're gonna need ample time to recover, thus allowing you to perform the next set with peak performance, if you will. Your tempo, in terms of tempo, we're looking at a 40x0. If you don't understand how to read tempos, I'll attach a link to the bottom of the description here. And I'll do a video in the future explaining tempos, but I'll explain it briefly. The 4 here represents your eccentric motion. 0 would be at the very bottom of the eccentric motion, so there would be no pause at the bottom. The X means you're exploding up. So that will be your concentric motion, and the 0 here means at the very top of the movement when you're at a mechanical advantage, there is no pausing, so you're dropping straight back down into your eccentric for a 4 count, okay? And by a 4 count, I mean 4 100s, 3 100s, 2 100s, 1 100, so it's not like 4 3 2 1, right? It's actual real seconds, right? You could also time yourself when you're following these types of tempos. Another thing about tempos and why they are important is because time under tension is very, very crucial. You don't want to just be doing the movements. You want to make sure that the muscle is under stress for a certain amount of time to elicit the strength quality that we're trying to accomplish by actually lifting in this rep range. So that is very, very, very important, and it's often overlooked. And you see these types of things at gyms where people are just lifting up and down without really thinking what it is that they're doing, and thus they're not reaching the goals that they're trying to accomplish by even lifting in that rep range. So that's important to understand. sets, somewhere between 3 to 5. You could go even higher than this. You could go 8, but generally speaking, 3 to 5 will be a sweet spot. Set length. So the set length is going to tie in directly to your tempo. So for example, if you're doing a rep range of, let's just say you decide to do 1 RM and you're following this tempo, well, it's going to take you 4 seconds to go down eccentrically, and you're going to try to explode on the way up. That explosion might not happen, but that's okay. So let's just say it's a grind on the way up and it's going to take you about 2 seconds to come up. Well, it's going to be, I put 4 seconds, but that should probably be at least 6 seconds. So let me change that there. Should be 6 seconds. So that rep is going to take you about 6 seconds to complete. And if you're training at a high enough intensity in terms of your 1 RM, you're going to need to rest the 3 to 5 minutes. So if you're doing 5 repetitions at a 40x0, it's pretty simple math. So it's, let's just say it's 5 by 6. It's going to be 30-second set. Okay, so that's what the set length means. Okay, and the very last thing is training frequency. How often are you training this? I put here 1 to 2 times per week. Now, this is going to be very, very personal based off of training age. By training age is how many years have you been training, your recovery, what does your sleep look like, what does your nutrition look like. There's some people that just, also genetically, some people could just recover faster than others. So that's going to be very important to figure out how many sets per week of this type of training you want to do. Now, also, if you are not an athlete, it maybe doesn't make any sense to be going hardcore and doing absolute strength like 4 times a week. There is going to be a cost of doing business when you're doing that, and that could mean maybe you get an injury, maybe your sleep will be affected. For your average person, we're looking for 1 to 2 times per week for absolute strength. What does hypertrophy look like? Well, think bodybuilders. What is the rep range that they train in, and what is the percentage of their 1 rep maximum that they're training under? And it's something between 70 to 85% of their 1 RM. There'll be some leeway here, okay? So maybe it's, maybe it's 69%, or maybe you could go up to 90 as well. Again, it depends on your training age and how many years of experience you have training. Somebody that's a professional bodybuilder, they're gonna get maybe higher into this rep range and still be able to pump out 8 repetitions, okay? So in terms of rep ranges, we're looking at 8 to 12 reps for the given set. Your rest is gonna be about 60 seconds to 90 seconds before you perform your next set. Your tempo, here I gave an example of a 3-1-X-0. So 3 represents, again, your eccentric. 1 would be there's a pause at the bottom. So I'll give you an example with a squat. If you're squatting down, it's going to take you 3 seconds to get down. So 3, 2, 1, 1. X, you try to explode up. No pause at the top. You repeat the movement. Okay, so that will be 4 sec. It'll be probably closer to 5 to 6 seconds again for each rep. Sets are going to be 3 to 4 sets. So your set length, when we're using the hypertrophy strength quality, we're looking at 45 to 60 seconds more or less for your set length. And let's use the example of 3-0-X-0, 3 being your eccentric portion of the movement. So if we're squatting down, we're going down for 3, 2, 1. There's a pause at the bottom for 1 second. X, explode up, and 0, no pause at the top. So it's going to be 3 seconds eccentric, 1 second pause at the bottom. X, you want to explode up, but realistically speaking, you will not reach maximum acceleration as you're coming up. So it'll be more realistically, it'll be about 2 seconds, but intent is important. This rep will last 6 seconds approximately. So if we're looking at 8 repetitions, that's going to be 48 seconds that you're under time under tension. In terms of frequency per week, how many times per week are you training? It depends on the individual, but generally speaking, 2 to 3 times per week. And now let's get into the final strength quality. So strength endurance or muscular endurance, whatever you want to call it. Even things like Tabata will fall under this. It's about 60% of your 1RM in terms of rep ranges, 12 plus. Some people like to say 15 plus. In terms of rest, we're looking at 30 to 60 seconds between sets. So if we're looking at a tempo of 2010, 2 seconds in the eccentric portion or on the way down, or resisting gravity, that's a good way of looking at it, because if you're doing a pull-up, the eccentric motion is backwards, right? Your eccentric is, well, I guess it's not backwards. I guess it's a lowering on the way down too. Whatever. Anyways, 2010 tempo, 2 seconds in the eccentric portion, or when you're resisting gravity is another good way of looking at it. 0 pause at the bottom if it's a squat, 1 second on the way up, 0 seconds at the top. So it's a 3-second rep. At 12, it's 36 seconds, okay? So that's on the lower end in terms of what your set will look like in terms of set length. I put here 60 seconds, but you know what? That's actually an error. Let's remove that. Let's remove that, actually. It'll actually be between 30 and 60 seconds now that I think about it. And you know what? It'll be actually something between 30 and maybe even up to 90 seconds. It kind of really depends, right? There's, as you can see, these rules are not written in stone, right? But I would say it's about 30 to 90 seconds in terms of set length, and frequency per week, 3 times per week is more than enough. So now that I've explained what the different strength qualities are, I'm gonna explain power. And it's also a strength quality, but it's more of an advanced strength quality, okay? So when we're developing power, we're expressing strength with the added variable of acceleration or speed, okay? So think about an Olympic weightlifter will fall under this category. Think of a 100-meter sprinter will fall under the category of power. Now, when it comes to your 1RM, it's less than your absolute strength because you have to express strength under speed or with the variable of speed attached to that, okay? Your rep range is 1 to 3 reps. Now, you could do closer to 5 reps, but now you're affecting your 1RMs. Rest, we're looking at 5 minutes between sets. When it comes to tempo, I eliminated the 40x0 here, for example, and I just put explosive because it's just about being super fast. So a clean, for example, it just becomes a really fast concentric, essentially, and then dropping it down. So there's no eccentric portion of the movement. It's just all concentric, but a super fast concentric, and you want to do it literally as fast as humanly possible. Thus why this is significantly more advanced. It's not even intermediate. I don't think intermediate people should be really messing with this type of training. There is a higher level of competence when it comes to your movement quality, etc., that you should take into consideration before implementing this type of training on yourself, clients, and even advanced athletes, really, or sorry, advanced clients, right? When it comes to athletes, I guess I guess it matters to know what specific sport that they're in, because this might not even be applicable. It depends, right? So actually it probably applies to every sport, really, now that I think about it. Yeah, I can't think of a sport that doesn't have some principle of explosive power involved in. Maybe curling, I guess, is the only one that I can think of. Anyways, I go on rants sometimes. Anyways, in terms of sets, 5 to 10. So the reason why the sets, you know what, I'll explain that after. So sets are 5 to 10. Set length is not really applicable. If you're doing 1 rep and it's super explosive, your set is gonna last a second, right? So it's not really applicable in this one. Training frequency, 1 to 2 times per week. Again, this is very independent on the individual, right? If you're an athlete and you're trying to squeeze every ounce of performance out of you, then your coaches are gonna want more than this, right? So, but for, you know, your average Joe and Jane out there, 1 to 2 times per week. So now that I've explained what the strength qualities are, I've explained what power is, you're gonna notice a few things here in the chart. So for example, you're gonna notice inverse relationships. And what is an inverse relationship? The closer we get to more repetitions, right, the relationship with the 1RM inverts a little bit, right? So the 1RM decreases, but our reps go up. The closer we are here to absolute strength, the percentage of 1RM goes up, right? Goes up, but our reps go down. So this is an inverse relationship, and it's actually very important to understand this. So we'll have it down here, right? And then this is kind of like something in the middle. Yeah, and you'll see other inverse relationships, for example, even in terms of sets, right? The closer we are in absolute strength, and you know what, this could even go, you could even go to 10 sets if you will, especially the closer you are to like 90, maybe even 95% of your 1RM. Well, you're gonna need a lot more sets because you're probably only gonna do 1 to 2 reps. So if you want to train with enough volume, you're gonna have to do more sets to make up the difference, right? So again, here's that inverse relationship, right? The closer we get to absolute strength, our sets go up. The closer we get to strength endurance or muscular endurance, our sets go down. Just because the volume, you're gonna be able to express enough volume in less sets when you're closer to strength endurance, or if you're training under strength endurance than you can with absolute strength, so you have to do more sets to make up the difference in terms of volume, right? Also here, like things like your rest, where is it? So here your rest, again, another inverse relationship, right? Rest is very high when we're closer to our absolute strength, where it's rather short when we're training strength endurance. And that's because of the response that we're trying to elicit from your body. So here it's more about training your slow twitch fibers, and here we're training more your fast twitch fibers. And then hypertrophy kind of falls somewhere in the middle. If you don't know what fast or slow twitch fibers are, I'll post a link in the description so you could read about that. But essentially with strength endurance, we're more geared towards slow twitch fibers, and absolute strength is more fast twitch fibers. So again, keep that in your mind. Like even sprinters or like think power lifters, right? Because absolute strength is more under the power lifter world. They're gonna be a lot more muscular than, let's just say, a marathon sprinter. And what's the reason for that? Well, it's the fiber type that they're trying to accomplish. They want bigger muscles, and bigger muscles are usually associated with fast twitch fibers, whereas a marathon runner doesn't need big muscles, right? They need muscles that are going to be able to be resistant to fatigue. That way you could train that strength quality more appropriately, right? So going over the inverse relationship, things go up and down depending what side of the strength spectrum we are. And then the hypertrophy is a happy medium here, right? So if your goal is to get super jacked, then like a bodybuilder, then you kind of want to train within this rep range, right? All right, guys, so now that you understand what the strength spectrum is, what strength qualities are, what inverse relationships are, what all of these variables here on the right-hand side are, how do you implement this into a program? Well, I'm going to explain it to you. So let's just say you're writing a program for one of your clients. You can work within these two, right? You could work within these two strength qualities within the same training program. And let me elaborate. These two types of strength qualities are gonna have carryover to each other. The reason for that is because your rep ranges, your 1RM are close to each other, right? So for example, you could take one day where you're training hypertrophy, right? Let's just say Monday is hypertrophy, Wednesday is strength endurance, and then maybe we return to hypertrophy on Friday. That could be one example. So you can see they have carryover. What I would avoid is training, for example, strength endurance during the same training block or the same training program as training power, or even absolute. Again, maybe you could do absolute strength within the same within the same program. But generally speaking, you want to stick to strength qualities that complement each other. And that would be the best way to approach a program in a way where you're actually thinking about what it is that you are doing and what it is that you're trying to achieve for yourself, for your clients, and trying to get there in a systematic and smart way, if you will. Yeah, it's just a way where you're actually thinking about what it is that you're doing, where oftentimes trainers, at least that has been in my experience, they overlook these things, right? So for example, if you want to challenge a client in a way where like, you're trying to think of the fanciest, newest way of training, well, implement a tempo. Like if you've been doing a squat and you're not thinking about the tempo, well, start adding this could be a 4. It could be a 4-second eccentric, and you're going to crush them. I guarantee they're going to feel that little difference that you made into an old exercise, but we're just adding something to the mix. If you haven't been following your rest properly, well, time the rest. Start timing your rest when you're training your clients or when you're training yourself. Hold yourself accountable to 60 seconds, right? If you can't complete your sets, for example, if you have 4 sets and you have 60 seconds and you need to rest a little bit more, that's okay, right? But you could write that down. I hope you have a training journal. Or, I hope you have a way of keeping track of what it is that your clients are doing. Write that down, and you know that, okay, on Monday, we needed to take a little bit more rest when we were doing this tempo at we were squatting 100 pounds and we needed to take a longer rest. So this is how I would approach implementing the strength qualities into a program. Again, just to recap, you want to train within strength qualities that complement each other. So if they're next to each other, they complement each other, right? So hypertrophy and strength endurance complement each other. Absolute strength and hypertrophy, they complement each other. Power and absolute strength, they complement each other. Not to say that you can't, for example, train like this, and this within the same training block. But remember, when you start doing things like this, you're leaving a lot of you're leading a lot of performance or even gains or the ability to achieve a goal. You're kind of putting that on the side a little bit, right? So that's why I think it's also very important to be very concrete on the specific goals and the timelines associated with those goals. So if your goal is to become super strong, then what's the point of focusing on strength endurance? It makes no sense, right? Like if I want to be able to, deadlift 500 pounds by the end of the year, I'm going to focus the next year into this, maybe a little bit to this, and then maybe once in a while I'll dabble a little bit hypertrophy. I hope this makes it a little bit more clear how you could implement this into your training programs for training yourself, training clients, training athletes. This video has been a little bit longer than my typical videos, but if you're enjoying this content, smash the like button, hit the subscribe button, or if you don't like the content, you can hit the dislike button. Do whatever it is that you want to do. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you right here on the next video.